Now we can move on to number 4, which is bank recs. So hopefully this is all one you're going to be, oh yeah, we do that, totally fine. But just because again, this is absolutely key. You know, if your bank doesn't reconcile, you can't proceed with your year-end figures. You can't move on until that's reconciling. So firstly, very briefly to recap, hopefully you are all doing reconciliations on a monthly basis for each of your bank accounts. If you aren't, please go back and revisit the help guides, the training if you're not sure of any of that. I'm not going to take you through that today, but you should be coming into here, ticking the transactions off, making sure it's up to date, saving it, checking where you are. Okay. If you've got a difference, please go and look for it. Don't just carry it along because it's going to cause you a problem once you get to the end of the financial year. But once you've done that individually for each of your bank accounts, I would also suggest that you're running Reconcile All Banks on a monthly basis. So we strongly recommend doing your reconciliations to a month end because that obviously works well once we get to the 31st of March. It might be that you have statements that maybe don't go to the end of the month and you base it on that, which is fine, but do make sure you get those other days of March. I have seen people who've gone up to the 28th of March because that's when they get the statement and they've got more transactions happening in those last 3 days. They then get pulled up on it because their end of year figures aren't correct because they've not gone to the 31st of March. So make sure that you're clear on that. So in this scenario, I'm at the 31st of December, so I'm working on a monthly basis. Obviously, we're in mid-January. So I've entered my audit date. I've done those reconciliations on the other screen and reconcile in there for my individual accounts. I've got my statement dates and my balances. So these white boxes here are where we enter in the information in order that Scribe can check. So these are the dates I'm working to and the balances on those statements at that date. If you do have an account where you maybe don't get a statement all the time or it's a little bit behind, you can record that in there. But again, obviously we need to make sure you get an up-to-date one for the 31st of March. And then at the bottom, Scribe will calculate in these grey boxes the position. So it will total your statements, as you can see here. It will adjust for anything that you've got unpresented. So these are transactions that you've entered onto Scribe that you haven't ticked off under Reconcile. And we'll talk more about them in a moment. And it will adjust the bank balance. So the first part of this process is putting the figures into here and making sure you've got a zero difference. If you've got that, then obviously you've reconciled. And again, I suggest that you do that monthly. So obviously once you get to the end of March, it was all good in February. So it's hopefully nice and straightforward. So we can run the report and have a look at what that looks like. And again, hopefully you're all going to nod at me and say, yes, I do this every month and I'm very au fait with this. But it comes like this. You can have a prepared and approved by sign off so that you've got that formal one, particularly for the 31st of March. You might want to then keep a copy of that. But in this example, we're at the 31st of December, which is the audit date we requested. This is our cash in hand as per Scribe. So our starting position based on our box 8 of last year, plus our receipts, less our payments is our cash in hand. That then compares to the statement balances that we've told on that previous screen. So this is where we've entered in the data from our statement. So making sure that we've got our up-to-date statements to the 31st of March when we get to that point. Adjust for our unpresented items, and therefore we see A equals B checks out okay. So that's sort of stage one. Does it balance? If it doesn't, it will tell you the value that it's out by, and it's a case of going and working out what's gone wrong, finding that reconciliation difference. I'm not going to spend any time on that today, but if you have got a reconciliation difference and you can't find it, then please contact us and you can ask the question. The other part of it though, and I would say equally as important and something that actually catches a lot of people out, and is again something that crops up a lot, is making sure that you have reviewed your unpresented items. So if you have transactions that you've entered onto Scribe that you haven't ticked off as reconciled, they will appear here as unpresented. They will also therefore update that balance. So you can see here I've got 93,203 as my statement total. Because I've got some unpresented items, I have an adjusted bank balance, which is a different figure. So if this was my year end, my box 8 would not be the total of my statements. It would be this figure because I'm reporting unpresented items. So just to be absolutely clear, unpresented items are transactions that you have paid out or received, but that do not appear on the bank statement. So you've sent a check to your supplier to pay his invoice and you've put that on the cash book onto Scribe because yes, you've paid it, but they by the 31st of March hadn't cashed that check. that's absolutely fine. You've had some checks from customers paying you invoices, you've logged that as income, you've paid it into the bank, but it hasn't appeared on the statement. Unpresented items are not things you should have paid. It's not where you've bought some supplies in March and you've got a March invoice, but you haven't paid it yet because you're going to pay it in April. It is not that. If you're in receipts and payments, all you need to do is record the transactions when they take place. So if you're paying your March invoices in April, they need to be on Scribe in the new financial year, dated April, when you pay it. If you're in income and expenditure, you need to then again do the same thing, but you can also put an adjustment in. So you can put a creditor adjustment in to say at the end of the financial year, I owed this supplier X amount, let's say. But again, I'm only going to process the actual transaction when it actually takes place, when I pay that in April, etc., whenever I make payment. And this is what catches people out. They put their transactions on dated March, but if they haven't actually made those payments in March, they're not correct to be there. So it's really important that when you're doing this, if you're seeing unpresented items, you're absolutely certain that they're correct. So to review them, you can go to Filter, drop down from the summary, select either uncashed payments or receipts, click View Report, run it like that. I've just got one for grass cutting, so it's dated November. So is this correct? You know, it might be that I've made a duplicate entry and I haven't realised, so I can go back and review it. Obviously, it's for duplicate 0 or off, because otherwise it's going to cause you that difference at the end of the year. If it genuinely is a check and my supplier hasn't cashed it, obviously point one, check, chase them up. Have you received the check? What's going on? But if we were at the end of March and I legitimately had sent that check and it wasn't on the statement, then that's fine to be unpresented. If you're using online banking, it's mostly instantaneous, so you wouldn't expect to have anything unpresented. Obviously, as time's gone on over the last few years, we've moved a lot. You might have had originally a lot of unpresented items. Now, most councils don't because they pay online. Again, check receipts in the same manner. Here's my receipts. I've got in and out that I need to reconcile off, and I've got 2 lots of allotment fees. So if this was where, yes, I've had some cash or I had some checks in paid to me and I've banked it, or I haven't yet banked it, it's not appearing on the statement, fair enough. If it's come in instantly, then why haven't I reconciled it? Is it a duplicate? So it's really, really important to check them so that once you get to the end of the financial year, this summary here, it is not just does A equal B, it is also are my unpresented items correct? So I think like I needed to hammer that home, because as I said, that is something that causes a lot of problems for us and people if they get it wrong, because it will obviously change your box 8 figure.